How's it going? Bob DeBoo here for Open Studio. Today we're going to talk about developing your time, how to get pulse memory, which is going to help you to have good time on the bandstand, and everybody's responsible for it. I'm holding a bass, but everybody on the stage is responsible for having good time. So we're going to check out a few simplistic bass lines using a metronome, and we are going to work with a walking bass line and then also with a groove bass line, because that's also very important today, is to be able to have a good groove and on top of having a good swing feel. All right, so let's just dive right into it, okay? I've got the metronome set up over here. It's going to provide us clicks on all 4 beats at 120 beats per minute. Great. Now I mentioned pulse memory earlier, right? Immediately we want to get this pulse in our mind. Imagine being on the bandstand and your boss is counting off the tempo. All right, here it is, right? That's your pulse. We really want to keep that together, okay? So this is all 4 beats. I'm just going to assign one of these clicks as beat 1. And let's play this bass line. You ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. One more time. So you want your attacks right on the beat and the notes nice and long. Okay, take a break. Simplistic, right? Feel that pulse? Okay. I stopped the metronome, of course. Do you still feel that pulse? It's still in your mind, right? So this is, again, very similar to relative pitch. If you're used to hearing the same pitch every day or starting off your day with like an A440, you can wake up and just hear that A440. Can you still feel that 120? Pretty close, right? Okay, so here's the next step in the process. And again, you can do this with whether you're playing melodies, bass lines, any rhythms you're practicing. Cut the metronome information in half. So we were just at 120 beats per minute. Now let's hear 60. So let's just call this beats 1 and 3 to start. That's our same pulse. That's 120. Except we're getting half of the amount of information from the metronome, right? So it's now incumbent upon us to provide that beat inside of what we're getting from the metronome. It's going to start to ingrain this tempo in our pulse memory. Let's play that same bass line now. Got it? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Great. Now let's flip this over and call this 2 and 4. That's a much more common approach. So just say 2, 4. 2, 4, and in your mind, hear the 1 and 3. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, great. Do you still feel that beat? Do you still feel that tempo? That's all 4. What about 2 and 4? Let's play that bass line. Make it feel the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. So it still felt in time, had a good pulse, and we're keeping that pulse memory in the forefront of our thoughts as we're playing these quarter notes. So here, I'm going to move the metronome now to 30, but where's that pulse? I'm going to say it's right here. Let's see how close that is. Pretty close. So I halved the tempo again from 60 down to 30 from what I'm getting from the metronome, but the pulse is the same. And I'm going to call this beat 1. 1. It's a great idea to think about leading towards 1 when you're playing over a measure. Let's play the same bass line. 1, 2, 3, go. want to talk about getting away from quarter notes just for a minute as you're practicing this. So of course, there's walking bass lines, and thus far we've only played straight quarter notes, right? But if you start to add in some of the dance or drops or triplet skips, things like that, it's a really good idea to do that as well, to make sure that your rhythmic conception is staying strong, even with less information coming from the metronome. So let's change up this bass line a little bit, still keeping the click at 30 and making it swing, but let's add in a triplet drop and a couple skips. Okay, so here we go. Here's our pulse, and let's just check really quick. Okay, pretty close. This is what I'm talking about with pulse memory. You can still feel that tempo, right? So let's do this bass line. 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Let's do it again. There we go, that felt better. And of course you want to loop this and keep that going and check how long can you keep that really feeling good. And again, it's not about being in time all the time. You want it to feel good, but still have that constant pulse, and it's coming from you. Because eventually, of course, we're not going to be on the bandstand playing this. Let's try this bass line without the click now. I'm going to say it's there. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. One more time. Three, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. That's where it's at, okay? Great. So let's half 30 and go to 15 and call it the beginning of every 2 measures now. We're doing a 4-bar loop, so this will check in with us at the first bar and then the top of the 3rd bar. All right, so let me move that to 15. Now, when you're starting up a metronome, and most modern metronomes, especially digital ones, can go down this low and slower, actually. So hear that pulse before you start the beat. This is 15. Okay, let's do that first bass line with no skips in it. You ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. And if you notice yourself getting off at all, that's okay. Just adjust. See, I'm a little on top of it, but that's okay. Let's do that bass line with some of the skips and the dance involved in it, and see if it feels good at 15. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, I left out the skip. There it is. Cool. Another great thing to practice too is playing in 2. Let's look at this bass line in 2, and it's basically the same changes. It's just a reduction of our walking and bass line with the skips and the dance involved. So it's going to go like this. 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Of course, I'm doing these as bass lines that I've already written out. It's next level to create your own bass lines or walk over changes with this type of concept happening and come up with your own bass lines. If it's more than bass lines, melodies, solos, etc., it can really make a big difference in your internal pulse and your groove. Make sure you do not use the metronome at some point and still feel that pulse memory. Do you got it? Let's play that 2-feel bass line one more time, getting this pulse memory involved. 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Right, so I'm trying to keep that pulse memory involved, whether it was a little slower, a little faster. That's okay, because big revelation, tempos do fluctuate on a bandstand. Music breathes. It doesn't always need to be perfectly in time, but we should have good time. There's one more way that I want to deal with this concept, and that's to use a non-swinging situation. So I'm going to use a funk bass line from the great Yusef Lateef's Nubian Lady. It's a very simplistic bass line, but we're going to do the same thing to it and make sure it feels right. So here is our new pulse. We got to ingrain this as quick as we can. Pretend like we just moved on from that first tempo. That was the first song of the set. Here's our second song. This is the band leader counting off the tempo right now. Got to lock that in. So these are the quarter notes, but the bass line involves some sixteenths. So inside of this, I want to hear that 16th note subdivision. I'm just going to keep them straight for right now. You could swing this, but okay, here's the bass line. 3, 4. Okay, so now we've got that pulse memory involved. We're going to half the metronome. We were at 88, now we're at 44. So now this is clicking on 1 and 3, and I'm feeling the quarter notes and the sixteenths. Right? Of course, you can move this to 2 and 4 and make it feel more like a backbeat. That's really helpful. So you just say 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cool. And of course, you can play around with moving this ahead, moving it behind the beat a little bit, and that snare drum will start to the fake snare drum, the metronome snare drum, the 2 and 4, will feel different too. So you could throw that in the mix. Let's half that 44 and half now. Okay, that felt better. So the last step, we were just at 22 from the metronome. Let's divide that in half, 11. Same pulse. That pulse memory needs to stay constant. Cool? So that's a good way to lock it in, really get your time and your pulse feel super solid, and that's a great way to practice. I practice that way a bunch. Again, over a multitude of bass lines, try writing out your own, practicing some you know, improvising some. That gets you next level, is to start improvising and changing up your bass lines. Do this with melodies, do this with soloing, and you'll start to hear some of your time, consistencies waver or maybe not. But it's a very revealing exercise. Cool. So if you enjoyed this, come find me over at Open Studio Pro. I teach 4 guided practice sessions every week with our great OS Pro members. I teach a rhythmic guided practice session. We do stuff just like this a whole bunch. And I also teach a bunch of bass guided practice sessions. It's a lot of fun. So come join us. All right, happy practicing. Peace.